because our record button was not pushed actually, so I have to take it again. That's all fine. So let's just go from start. I started on text 33 in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad-gita. There Arjuna says, Yuyam yogas tvaya proktas samyena madhusudana etasyaham napashyami chanchalatvad stitim stiram. Arjuna said, O Madhusudana, the system of yoga which you have summarized appears impractical and unendurable to me, for the mind is restless and unsteady. So the system of mysticism described by Lord Krishna to Arjuna, beginning with the words Shucha Desha and ending with Yogi Parama, is here being rejected by Arjuna out of a feeling of inability. Yeah. So he says Shucha Desha means a sanctified place. Then Yogi Parama, to be in the transcendental state as a yogi. That's of course the end goal, also called Samadhi. Well, it's not easy to do these steps, which are counted as 8. Ashta Anga Yoga, like that. Ashta Anga. 8 limbs or parts. Yeah. Yeah. Ashtanga Yoga. Yeah. The process of process of unity with the Lord. So that doesn't mean homogeneous unity. It's not homogeneous. But unity with diversity. With individual diversity. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, as Prabhupada says, it's not possible for an ordinary man to leave home and go to a secluded place in the mountains or jungles to practice yoga in this age of Kali. Yeah, we have too little time. It was much more time before to do this. And on top of that, the mind is very difficult to control. Chanchalam hi manaha Krishna pramati balavadridham tasyaham nigraham manye vair iva suduskaram. The mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate and very strong, O Krishna. And to subdue it, I think, is more difficult than controlling the wind. That's very true. So Prabhupada is giving the reference here from the Katha Upanishad. Atmanam ratinam vidhi shariram ratam evacha buddhim tu saratim vidhi mana pragraham evacha indriyani hayanahur vishayam steshu gocharam atmendriya manoyuktam bhukte tyahur manishinaha. The individual is the passenger in the car of the material body. In intelligence is the driver, mind is the driving instrument, and the senses are the horses. The self is thus the endurer or sufferer in the association of the mind and senses. So it is understood by great thinkers. I just put that up here because this is a well-used analogy. It's appearing in a lot of places in our books. Also in the Bhagavatam, the same analogy is given, but it's, you can say, fleshed out a little bit more. So first, let's see, we have the car, or you can say the chariot. Is that the same thing? No, car. We know we're not talking about the car in a modern day, but a car which you have a driver to drive the horses. So that is, what is that? It's the body. Yeah. And then you have. Let's start with the first one. The Atman. That is the passenger. Soul, yeah. The car is the body, but before we come to the car, we have some more stuff there. We have the intelligence, you have the mind, and then you have intelligence. So intelligence is the driver. He's keeping the horses in his rein. Mind is the driving instrument. That's the rein. The reins to control the horses. Yeah. So I should put that under the intelligence then, so we get the right hierarchy here. First, you have the person who is there. He paid for the driver to drive him. And then the driver is controlling with his mind. What is he controlling? The senses. So who are the senses? That's the horses. So there are 5 horses. Yep. And what are those? It's the eyes, nose, tongue, skin, and ears, of course. Yeah. And they are hankering after 5 objects. Although not mentioned here, but that's mentioned elsewhere. Actually, they're running after these 5 objects. Yeah, that's why they have to be controlled. So we can match them here. The 5 objects are: for the eyes is the form, nose is the smell, tongue is the touch sensation, tongue is the taste, skin is the touch sensation, and the ears are the sound. And then we have the car, which is the body. Yeah, that's it. And it's made up of earth, water, fire, air, and ether. And again, these are also then being represented in the 5 sense objects and in the 5 senses. The 5 senses are going after these 5 objects actually, which our body ourselves is made up from. It's a little bit of a paradox that one is running after something that we actually possess ourselves. It's because of the illusory energy. That's the usual answer. But more directly, it's because of the mind actually, because it's very unsteady and as Prabhupada says here, intelligence is supposed to direct the mind, but the mind is so strong and obstinate. What's the meaning of obstinate? It means something like, I can look it up. Yeah. It's stubbornly adhering to an option so obstinate is here. Stubbornly adhering to an attitude, option, or course of action. That's really what our mind is. It likes to just repeat the same thing. And then it's difficult to control also. So such a strong mind is supposed to be controlled by the practice of yoga. But such practice is never practical for a worldly person like Arjuna. They're all worldly persons. So what can we say of modern mind? The smile here used here is appropriate. One cannot capture the blowing wind. Vayu eva suduskaram. So that's why Bhagavan Shri Krishna is now speaking. Asamshayam mahabaho mano durnigraham chalam abhyasana tukanteya vairagyena chagriyate. Shri Krishna said, O mighty armed son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by suitable practice and by detachment. Yeah. The difficulty of controlling the obstinate mind, as expressed by Arjuna, is accepted by the personality of Godhead, but at the same time he suggests that by practice and attachment it is possible. So here I put in what the Yoga Sutra says, because this 6th chapter is referencing the techniques outlined in the Yoga Sutra. You can say the Bible of yoga. Yeah. So first of all, Yoga Sutra is meant for controlling the mind. That's why I thought it was relevant to also put in put in this verse here. It says, Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha. That yoga means to control, actually to get rid of the vrittis of the chitta. Yeah, it means to still the mind, actually. Still is it? Yeah. So it means to get rid of the waves. Yeah. The turbulence. Yeah. So that's the vritti. Or some they may even say the functions. Functions are also called vritti. Vrittis. Yeah, this can be discussed back and forth about what it actually means. Of course, in Bhakti Yoga, we will say that we can even be disturbed in the mind. It's okay. The meaning of yoga, according to Bhakti, it is to be linked up with Krishna and serve Krishna, no matter if you're disturbed or not. That would tally quite well, actually, with Bhagavad-gita itself, because you are definitely going to be disturbed in your mind when you're fighting a war, right? So in that way, it's said by Vaishnavas that Bhakti Yoga is getting higher than the Yoga Sutra, actually. So otherwise, Yoga Sutra is giving the process to control the mind. Is now I'm actually just referring to Bhagavad-gita. It's two ways he said. Sadhana Bhakti is Abhyasa, yeah. Abhyasa Yoga, yeah. So, and then Vairagya. So that's so first one is practicing, and then detachment. Yeah. And then we do that under a teacher, guru, chanting minimum amount every day, studying a minimum amount every day, being vegetarian. There's just a few ways one can practice, sadhana. And then you have, for vairagya, to be detached. Yeah. In order to be detached, has to follow yamas and niyamas. Yeah. So here we have yamas. Both are counted as 5 in the Yoga Sutra. And they're all followed by Vaishnavas, so they're relatable 100%. So first one, ahimsa, non-violence, means bodily, verbal, and mental. So bodily, of course, we are vegetarian. Verbal means also we don't like to speak harshly. So satyam, truthfulness, not lying, being straightforward, etc. Asteya, not stealing, not claiming credit for something falsely. Brahmacharya, chastity, celibacy, walking the path of Brahman. Aparigraha, non-possessiveness, not greed for others' things. Niyamas, that is shaucha, this means purity, cleanliness, not cleanliness, cleanliness, inside and outside. Santosha, satisfaction, content on his content and grateful. And tapasya, austerity, self-discipline. Svadhyaya, self-study, studying Shastra. Ishvara Pranidhana, contemplating on Ishvara, worship of the Lord. So studying Shastra means, the holy books. Yeah. Okay. So Ishvara Pranidhana is, of course, interesting for us. Yeah. It implies Bhakti Yoga. Hare Krishna. Yeah. Yeah, so Srila Prabhupada is saying here that what is this practice? He says, in the present age, no one can observe the strict rules and regulations of placing oneself in a sacred place, focusing the mind on the super soul, etc., etc. But by practice of Krishna consciousness, however, one engages in 9 types of devotional service to the Lord. Yeah, so that I also started writing here. There's hearing, chanting, remembering, serving, the lotus feet of the Lord, worship of the deity of the Lord, and prayers to the Lord. Yeah, these are nine types of devotional service. Dasam being dasya, servant. Sakyam being a friend. And then Atmanivedanam, surrendering one's whole life, or one's very self. Yeah, is that 9? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah. And Prabhupada says the first and foremost of such engagements is hearing about Krishna. This is a very powerful transcendental method for purging the mind of all misgivings. The more one hears about Krishna, the more one becomes enlightened and detached from everything that draws the mind away from Krishna. So hearing is very good. Hearing means also to read the books about Krishna, of course. By detaching the mind from activities not devoted to the Lord, one can very easily learn vairagya. Yeah, so that's helpful then to follow the 10 different do's and don'ts described above. And then vairagya means detachment from matter and engagement on the mind and spirit. So it includes that there is some positive, not only detaching but also attaching to Krishna at the same time. Because impersonal spiritual detachment is more difficult than attaching the mind to the activities of Krishna. This is practical because by hearing about Krishna, one becomes automatically attached to the Supreme Spirit. This attachment is called parayashanubhava, spiritual satisfaction. It is just like the feeling of satisfaction a hungry man has for every morsel of food he eats. The more one eats while hungry, the more one feels satisfaction and strength. So in that way the mind also then becomes satisfied. Yeah. So Prabhupada gives the analogy here that hearing of the transcendental activities of Lord Krishna is therefore expert treatment of for the mad mind, and eating the foodstuff offered to Krishna is the appropriate diet for the suffering patient. This treatment is the process of Krishna consciousness. So the Krishna devotional process, main things are the 3 first ones: hearing about Krishna, chanting about Krishna, and of course remember Krishna. But here Prabhupada just highlighted 3 things in the end here: it's hearing, chanting, and eating the prasadam, which is food offered to Krishna. And then you can then have versus the mechanical process, which is complicated. Then you have to follow the 8 levels of elevation. Say Ashtanga. So that's yama, niyama, and then asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. So these are 8. So hatha yoga practices are mostly sitting posture, and actually before it was not that fleshed out as today. In the Yoga Sutra itself is just described the 3 sitting postures. It's just 3 verses. Actually describe 8 postures, not only sitting but 8 different physical postures. 8 is 12 actually. 12 postures described in the Vyasa, Vasya to Yoga Sutra. Yeah, Vyasa has a commentary to Yoga Sutra where he describes 12 postures, out of which 4 are main, most important. And pranayama, breath control, pratyahara, pulling the senses inward, away from the sense objects. Dharana, concentration, dhyana, meditation, and samadhi, absorption in the Supreme, or in God, of course in Krishna. But Prabhupada said that we can get samadhi by following Bhakti also. Just starting with hearing and chanting about Krishna. That's a more simple process. Otherwise, as we hear here, asamyat atmana yogo dushpra itame mati vashyatmana tu yatata shakyo vaptum upayata. For one whose mind is unbridled, self-realization is difficult work, but he whose mind is controlled and who strives by appropriate means is assured of success. That is my opinion. So if we control our mind, we can do it. How do you control the mind then? Arjuna is asking now. Ayati shradaya upeto yoga chalitamanasaha aprapya yoga samsiddhim kagatim Krishna gachati. Arjuna said, "O Krishna, what is the destination of the unsuccessful transcendentalist who in the beginning takes to the process of self-realization with faith, but who later desists due to worldly mindedness and thus does not attain perfection in mysticism?" We may not get success in this very easily, at least not in one life. So then what? And Arjuna is then getting the answer. Actually, he just wants to speak one more verse. He says, Kachin no bhaya vibrashtash chinabram ivas nashyati apratishtu mahabaho vimudho brahmanapati. Almighty armed Krishna, does not such a man who is bewildered from the path of transcendence fall away from both spiritual and material success and perish like a riven cloud with no position in any sphere? So what is Krishna saying to that? Even one more verse from Arjuna. Etam me samshayam Krishna chetumarasya sheshata tvadanya samshayasya chatanahi upapadyate. This is my doubt, O Krishna, and I ask you to dispel it completely. But for you, no one is to be found who can destroy this doubt. This is true. Prabhupada says in the purport, Krishna is the perfect knower of past, present, and future. So now Arjuna wants to know the future. And of course, the best person to ask is Krishna. He says that in the Bhagavad-gita. He says, I know past, I know present, and I know future. But me, no one knows. So, Sri Bhagavan Vacha, now finally Krishna is speaking. Partanaive hana mutra vinashash tasya vidyate naikalyana krit kaschit durgatim tata gachati. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O son of Pritha, a transcendentalist engaged in auspicious activities does not meet with destruction either in this world or in the spiritual world. One who does good, my friend, is never overcome by evil. So in other words, don't worry, just keep on practicing. There will be no destruction if one wants to do good. So in the same way, Prabhupada is referring to Bhagavatam verse, where Sri Narad Muni instructs Vyasadeva as follows: Tyaktva sadharmam charanam bhujam harer bhajana pakvo tapatet tato yadi yatra kva vabadrama buddha mushyakim kuvarta apto bhajatam swadharmataha. If someone gives up all material prospects and takes complete shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there is no loss or degradation in any way. On the other hand, a non-devotee may fully engage in his occupational duties and yet not gain anything. So there is no problem. Krishna is definitely going to help somebody who wants to do proper. Even if there is some fault on the way, still there is no loss. And for somebody who is not at all interested in doing Krishna activities, Bhakti Yoga activities, then what is the gain? Yeah. So then next verse, Krishna says here in the Gita, Prapya punya kritam lokan ushitva shashvati samaha shuchinam shrimatam gehe yoga brashto bijayate. Then successful yogi, after many, many years of enjoyment on the planets of the pious living entities, is born into a family of righteous people or into a family of rich aristocracy. Yes, so Prabhupada said there is two classes of the unsuccessful yogis. One is fallen after a very long process. One is fallen after very little progress, and one is fallen after a long practice of yoga. The yogi who falls after a short period of practice goes to the higher planets, where pious living entities are allowed to enter. Yeah. And then he takes birth in a family of rich, righteous Brahmana, Vaishnavas, or aristocratic merchants. Yeah. So then we have the other one, who is unsuccessful after a long practice of yoga. Atava yoganam eva kule bhavate di matam etadi durlabhataram loki janma yad idrisham. Or, if unsuccessful after a long practice of yoga, he takes his birth in a family of transcendentalists who are surely great in wisdom. Certainly such a birth is rare in this world. So in other words, he takes his birth in the family of devotees. And the previous one was that he's born in a wealthy family, like that, Brahmana family, righteous family. But this one is supposedly higher. Yeah, but both of them are good for Bhakti Yoga. Yeah, so certainly such a birth is rare in this world. And then Krishna says, Tatratam buddhi samyogam labate paurva dehikam yatate chatato guyaha samsidau kurunandana. On taking such a birth, he revives the divine consciousness of his previous life, and he again tries to make further progress in order to achieve complete success of son of Kuru. And then Prabhupada is giving the example of King Bharata, who took his third birth in the family of a good Brahmana. He was the emperor of the world, and since his time this planet has been known as Bharatvarsha. Yeah. The emperor at an early age retired for spiritual perfection but failed to achieve success. In his next life he took birth in the family of a good Brahmana and was known as Jada Bharata, because he always remained secluded and did not talk to anybody. Jada means dull. Yeah, they thought he was a dull-headed person, but actually he was a great transcendentalist. He just wanted to keep away from bad association. And later on he was discovered as the greatest transcendentalist by King Rahugana. From his life it is understood that transcendental endeavors or the practice of yoga never go in vain. By the grace of the Lord, the transcendentalist gets repeated opportunities for complete perfection in Krishna consciousness. Purvabhyasena tena eva riyate avashopisa yigyasurapi yogasya shabda brahma tivartate. By virtue of the divine consciousness of his previous life, he automatically becomes attracted to the yogic principles, even without seeking them. Such an inquisitive transcendentalist stands always above the ritualistic principles of the scriptures. Yeah, so here it said he's automatically being attracted. It's just in his spine. Because actually it is in his subtle body, because he has yoga samskaras or bhakti samskaras. So they are lying there in the subtle body from what we have done in our previous life. That will be the tendencies of vasanas we have in our current life. Yeah. So Prabhupada says, advanced yogis are not very much attracted to the rituals of the scriptures, but they automatically become attracted to the yoga principles, which can elevate them to complete Krishna consciousness. So here it looks like a not so religious, you can say the worst sense of the term, but more like mystics. Yeah, Krishna consciousness is the highest yoga perfection. Yeah, sorry, I cannot answer now. I'm in the middle of the. Maybe I have to look up if there is any message here. Yeah. So back to the text. see. Yeah, so we'll just read on. Prayatnad yatamanastu yogi samshuddha kilbishaha aneka janma samsidas tatuyati paramgatim. And when the yogi engages himself with sincere endeavor in making further progress, being washed of all contaminations, then ultimately achieving perfection after many, many births of practice, he attains the supreme goal. Like that. Yeah. So we'll soon round off. Now we only have 2 verses left, I think. Yeah. So text 46. Tapas vibhyo diko yogi Jnani bhyopi matodikaha karmi vyaschadiko yogi tasmad yogi bhavardina. A yogi is greater than the ascetic, greater than the empiricists, and greater than the fruitive worker. Therefore, Arjuna, in all circumstances, be a yogi. So what are we waiting for? Let's all be yogis. Yeah. Because when Prabhupada says, when we speak of yoga, we refer to linking our consciousness with the Supreme Absolute Truth. So what's bad about that? That's the best thing we can do, right? So let's just be yogis, because now Krishna is saying, Yoginam api sarvesham matkate anantaratmana shadavan bhajite yomam same yuktatamo mata. And of all yogis, the one with great faith always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me. He is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. Yeah. So in that way, if one is a devotee, then one is actually the best yogi. Yeah. So as mentioned by Prabhupada here in the very end of the purport, he quotes from the where he quotes from, I don't actually know. Bhakti rasya bhajanam tad iyamutrupadi nairasyena mushmin mana kalpam etadeva naish karmyam. Bhakti means devotional service to the Lord, which is free from desire for material profit, either in this life or in the next. Devoid of such inclinations, one should fully absorb the mind in the Supreme. This is the purpose of naish karmya. Yeah, naish karmya of course means to do things which is not defined as karma. It's free from karma because it is transcendental activities. The purpose of doing transcendental activities is bhakti. Yeah. Prabhupada says these are some of the means for performance of bhakti or Krishna consciousness, the highest perfectional stage of the yoga system. And thus we are finished with the 6th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad-gita. So thank you so much. And see you tomorrow. Hare Krishna.